Right, hello guys and welcome back. And to my Warlock viewers, things are finally starting to look up for you guys in terms of build crafting potential. And while we haven't yet fully received the numerous changes affecting the Warlock kit, namely the fact that buddy aspects like Hellion, Soul and Bleak Watcher are becoming grenade adjacent powers, speculated to be landing at some point in October, with the release of Ash and Iron we have started to see a few of the baseline changes roll in, including the rework to Empowering Rift and, more relevant to today's video, the rework to the Strand Warlock Weavewalk aspect, which leads me to introduce to you the topic of today's video, which is the ultimate #1 Strand Warlock build for the Ash and Iron update. So let's discuss what happened. In the Ash and Iron update, Weavewalk has received a fairly substantial rework where now you enter and exit the weave with improved horizontal velocity, and second, you now gain woven mail upon exiting the weave depending on how long you remained within it to begin with. And to quickly break it down, if you remain inside it for the duration of 2 full melee charges and exit shortly thereafter, you'll come out with 20 seconds of woven mail, which is pretty staggering and by far the longest achievable amount from any one source to date. Weavewalk also offers 3 fragment slots now instead of the previous 2, which will help with the build crafting later. And what's funny is that some of you may remember that at one point in time, Weavewalk only offered 1 fragment slot. Oh, how times have changed. This aspect is great to use in a pinch if you end up in a sticky situation and just need an easy get out of jail free card, because while within it you have a 90% damage resistance in PvE, which is identical to most roaming supers. But it's also going to be one of the main ways this build generates threadlings. Oh yes, it wouldn't be a Strand Warlock build without some top tier threadling generation. And to help with that, we're bringing along the Swarmer's exotic boots. While they may be the boring answer, there's a reason why you see Swarmers picked so often for Strand Warlock builds, and that's the fact that they allow your threadlings to actually do stuff, namely apply the Unravel debuff, which as a result allows them to create tangles. Without this, you'd have to rely on other sources of strand debuffs to create tangles like shackle grenades or arcane needles, but we don't want to be spending our needles because we're saving them for Weavewalk, so it has to be Swarmers 99% of the time unless Bungie decide to give threadlings an innate strand debuff, which, quick side note, they should. In my opinion, threadlings should apply Sever by default, but I digress. Not only will Swarmers allow our threadlings to unravel targets, but also breaking a tangle creates 2 additional threadlings, and speaking of, in the Ash and Iron update, they were buffed across the board by 20%, so now you're getting even more bang for your buck. Alongside Ash and Iron also came a brand new Strand exotic rocket pulse that I am making a centerpiece of today's build that we will also be generating near infinite ammo for with the correct stat distribution. And after that, all we need to do is equip some powerful new artifact perks and you have yourself a seriously strong build that is able to output unlimited threadlings that deal a crap ton of damage alongside a primary special ammo weapon with infinite ammo. So without further ado, let's get into it. And if you enjoy this type of content, then a like and subscribe is greatly appreciated. Starting off with our subclass, we are locked to the Needlestorm Super, though I did want to note here that as a result of the threadling buff, Needlestorm has received an indirect damage buff when compared to the previous patch. According to Aegis, it is roughly a 7.7% buff, assuming you have Thread of Evolution, which, spoiler alert, we do. For the basic abilities, we're actually taking Empowering Rift over Healing Rift because of the changes it received in the update as well. Now, Empowering Rift behaves ever so slightly differently. It still provides you with a 20% weapon damage buff. However, it now also makes it so standing within it passively and, albeit rather slowly, generates ability energy over time for all 3 of your abilities, as well as slightly boosting the ammo generation of your weapons. While it is small, it's still worth taking in my eyes because it just helps to get your next rift back faster. For the grenade, we have the Threadling Grenade as one of our first sources of threadlings. Then for the aspects, we of course have a Weavewalk, and then for the second, we're taking Weaver's Call. Weaver's Call also got a pretty substantial buff in Ash and Iron where 2 new things happen. Number 1, any type of damage, no matter the element, will cause a perched threadling to spawn in eventually, doesn't have to be strand, and 2, threadling damage now generates class ability energy, which does help to improve the looping of our Weaver's Call ability. Moving on to the fragments now, for the first time ever, we can slot 5 total fragments on our Strand Warlock here. So to start with, we're taking Thread of Mind. This fragment is going to make it so defeating suspended targets grants class ability energy, and we'll get to how we're triggering suspend when it comes to the artifact, but just trust me on this one for now. Second, we're taking Thread of Warding. This one will make it so collecting an Orb of Power grants 5 seconds of woven mail, and despite the woven mail gains from Weavewalk being far greater, it's still good to have warding in those times where you don't have much melee energy left. And side note, I also tested if collecting an orb would refresh your woven mail timer back to 20 seconds with warding equipped. However, this is not the case and is the result of some new tech that Bungie deployed where woven mail timers will only be refreshed to the maximum timer of the source that it came from. Moving along, no threadling build would be complete without Thread of Evolution, because this fragment boosts the damage of all threadlings you create by 33%. Not bad at all. Next, we have Thread thread of generation, this one simply states that dealing damage generates grenade energy, which will scale with our grenade stat, so the higher we have it, the better the returns will be, though more on that shortly. Finally, the last fragment we'll be needing is Thread of Fury. This one makes it so tangle damage restores melee energy, which we will need a good amount of if we want to keep spamming Weavewalk. Before we move on, I'd also encourage you to join our community Discord server. If you join today and enter the code word Threadling into the code words channel, you'll gain exclusive access to a behind the scenes channel where you could be involved in the making of these videos. But also, we just have a pretty cool community over there, so we'd love to have you, link in the description. Okay then, now let's talk stats, and the distribution you're seeing in front of you may seem a little strange at first, so do allow me to explain. My recommendation, first of all, is to get as close to or near around 160 weapon stat. Reason being, the other half of this build is going to involve the recently added new Malpais Strand Exotic Rocket Pulse and is going to act as our main primary weapon. And I do hope I'm pronouncing its name correctly. I think it's Spanish, but could be wrong. Anyway, let me know in the comments. The reason we're able to make it our primary weapon is by investing in the weapon stat all the way to 200, so every special break we create grants 10, yes 10 ammo with a scavenger to enable us to fire it basically indefinitely. That's why I recommend getting to 160 weapons, because with 2 weapons fonts on your boots, you get plus 40 stat, bringing you up to 200. Besides that, New Malpais is an incredibly solid weapon with some serious damage output, which by the way, without any damage perks active, is technically better than Mint Retrograde, but it is exotic, so that is to be expected. Just as a quick rundown, this weapon fires bursts of 3 sticky grenades that embed themselves onto a target, which can then be remotely detonated by holding the reload action, dealing a pretty big chunk of damage. Furthermore, I don't have it yet, but the catalyst also makes the sticky bomb explosions apply unravel, which is a nice added bonus. For my secondary weapon, I've gone for my Yeartide Apex with Burning Ambition, which was actually buffed in Ashen Iron to where the Scorch is now onset more quickly and takes less bullets to trigger. And because Scorch ticks trigger the release of your perched threadlings while in Weavewalk, I thought it would be a nice addition. Plus, Heal Clip is good for some extra sustain, something which admittedly this build is somewhat lacking, but it does make up for it. Back to my stats now, I've also gone for 80 class, 80 melee, and 70 super with the rest poured into grenade, which again may seem like an odd choice, but the reason I have it set up this way is because of our first artifact perk, Tightly Woven. Tightly Woven is going to make it so whenever you have woven mail, you gain plus 20 to both your grenade and class stats. So considering that we have 80 class naturally with this mod while having woven mail, we now get bumped to 100, and then in my case 70 for my grenade. I also have a host of font mods scattered throughout my armor which help to get some of my other stats like melee to 100, but I'll cover this more in the mods section. Just know that the bottom line in terms of stats is going to be 160 weapons with 2 weapon fonts, then 100 melee and 100 class through whatever means you can. That way you get your arcane needles, aka Weavewalk charges back the fastest. As for the rest of our artifact perk selections, the second we're taking is a newly released one in column 2 known as Threadling Proliferation. This mod will make it so dealing strand weapon damage has a chance to spawn a threadling. Defeating a strand debuff target increases this chance. So this mod is basically just a pocket Weaver's Call that stacks on top of Weaver's Call. Think of it as having the aspect on twice. And it does do exactly what it says on the tin, continuous damage on this barrier champion occasionally spawns in threadlings. Next up we have Elemental Benevolence. This mod states that granting allies an elemental buff gives class ability energy. And fun fact, not only does the woven mail from exiting Weavewalk affect you, it also affects your teammates in a pretty generous radius, about 10 meters. And yes, they too will get the full 20-second duration if you exit after consuming 2 full melee charges. So for team play, this aspect actually has the potential to put Strand Warlock on the map for endgame content activities, though it's still very early days, so we'll have to wait and see. Back to the mod, in granting woven mail to your allies this way, you will receive a small chunk of class ability energy for doing so. Next, we're taking Refresh Threads to make it so collecting a tangle grants energy to our least charged ability. Then yet another new mod in column 3 known as Pack Tactics. Pack Tactics states that dealing damage with threadlings increases threadling damage. At maximum stacks, threadlings stun unstoppable champions. And fun fact about this mod, it's totally infinite. Granted that each threadling only adds about 3 to 5 damage compared to the last, however you could in theory make this increase go on forever. The way it works is that continuous threadling damage charges a meter on the left of your screen that once full converts into the Pack Tactics timer that starts at 6 seconds, with additional threadling damage fully refreshing the timer and increasing the damage of them. At base, the damage increase is 15%, but in a prolonged combat engagement, it's highly likely that you can get this to well over 30% without even having to think about it, which in my opinion makes it a super awesome mod. And yeah, the threadlings also stun unstops, which is a pretty funny thing to see. This being a strand build, we're also going to need Threaded Blast in column 4, which will make it so destroying a tangle with strand damage increases the radius of the explosion, And as you can see here in this side-by-side comparison, it is fairly noticeable, so definitely make sure to have this. The last two mods we're going to need are Shield Crush and Tangled Web. Shield Crush because it states that while you have Woven Mail, your melee recharges faster and deals increased damage, and Tangled Web because creating a tangle by defeating a strand debuff target creates an accompanying suspending explosion, which ties back into why we have Thread of Mind from earlier, because defeating any targets caught within the explosion will grant even more class ability energy. That does it for our artifact perks, so what about set bonuses? Well, when it comes to armor, the choice is actually quite easy here, and that is to use the 2-piece Ion Adapter set from Mythic Kepler. Reason being, the 2-piece Force Absorption bonus states that final blows with a rocket launcher, grenade launcher, or micro missile temporarily decrease incoming area of effect damage. And because New Malpais is technically a micro missile weapon, each kill we get with it will grant 15 seconds of 20% reduced enemy splash damage and 60% self splash damage reduction, which will improve our overall survivability. You could also combo this with the 2-piece Ion Renewal set as well, so that kills with New Malpais also give you speed booster, but that isn't as necessary. Speaking of armor set bonuses, I will be making a full video breaking down all of the new armor sets added with Ashen Iron eventually. I'm likely going to wait until the Epic Raid to release it so I can do them all in one. Though in the meantime, if you want a full breakdown on all armor sets introduced in the Edge of Fate, then check out my previous video. Wrapping up with our armor mod choices, starting with the helmet, we're taking 1 super font, which in my case helps me reach 90 super, 1 special ammo finder to improve the rate at which we generate ammo for New Malpais, then Strand Siphon to allow it to make orbs on double kills. For the gloves, I've gone for 1 melee and 1 grenade font, again to improve my stats, because the beauty of a Threadling build is that at the time of writing, they don't have any interactions with mods like Firepower or Heavy-Handed or whatever. So we've got a little more free reign to assign fonts without the need for orb gen mods. Then third, I put a momentum transfer so that my grenade damage grants a little extra class ability energy. For the chest piece, we have a couple resist mods, then 1 copy of Strand Ammo Generation to improve the ammo gen stat of New Malpais, because by default it's sitting at 24, which is a tad low. For the boots, I've gone for 2 weapon fonts and 1 Strand Scavenger. Then finally for the class item, we have Time Dilation, Powerful Attraction, and Reaper to handle all of our orb gen needs. As far as the optimal gameplay loop is concerned, your aim should be to enter an engagement by pre-popping Weavewalk to gain 20 seconds of Woven Mail, then spam your rifts, grenades, and New Malpais until everything is dead, then repeat. It's a very satisfying build that is only more fun with teammates, because not only are you helping yourself, you're assisting them as well. So I hope you enjoyed the build and consider giving it a try. As always, there will be a dim link at the top of the description for you to copy the build hassle-free, and the fashion I used is also on screen now. Shout out to Gambit Jadestone. Anyway, that's all for today. I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now, dear viewer.